of that. But in any event, that would have played out, because at that point on 9/11, a lot of calls were taking place. I was on the phone with our French people trying to get their permission to release the information in this draft declaration. And so a lot of these calls, and I think pretty quickly, in 2 or 3 days, many of the highest level people in the FBI were getting calls from places like Minneapolis, and so they knew that these things. But I'm sorry, I don't know any more than that.
Just to follow up, I think there's a problem here, because as I understand it, I've read many times that their names were not on the
That's a myth, I think.
We're talking about, I guess, theory here. I mean,
well, they also, just to counter that a little bit, they were living, you know, we all think of the fictional shows where, you know, double agent, this and that, and people having backstopped, false, you know, if you were a CIA double agent or something, they would try to backstop your past and all this. So we think of that with the terrorists. But you know what? As far as I know, the 19 hijackers, suspects, you know, suicide hijackers, actually were living under their true names. And they weren't taking much care or precaution to be secret. And so that actually makes it even more egregious in many ways, because if you would have just checked the phone book, it turns out with the two, Midar and Hamzi, who were monitored at meetings in Kuala Lumpur, etc., if they had just checked the phone book, they probably could have found them. Very simple thing.
I can add something to that.
Okay.
I believe that the list you're talking about is the victims list that was put forward by CNN that did not have any of the hijackers' names on them. Richard Clark was given a flight manifest with 18 of the 19 names at 9:59 a.m. on the morning of September 11th. And I believe during the Moussaoui trial, they also released a partial flight manifest that did show the seating arrangements, and the names were on them, I believe.
And I'll confirm that very quickly those names were well known and on posters, maybe not all of them in Minneapolis, but there were names up very quickly on 9/11, 9/12. Okay, I will.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Coleen, and thank you to everybody. With all the evidence that's already been brought forward, and the laws, even though they're not really being enforced, we still have a constitution and people put in place to enforce it. What can we do to have the evidence we already have to get the law to take place and actually start bringing people into court?
Thank you for the question. And now we have a mic here. So this is so important to get this gigantic, long course turned around. We used to have, I mean, we're supposed to have a constitution. We're supposed to be governed by the rule of law. It would really be helpful to all of our goals. I think one of the things that I try to teach ethics people, and of course if you don't know these things, you fall into this right-wing talk radio trade-off that they always project. They'll say, it would be nice, you ethics idealists, if we didn't have to torture. Isn't that a wonderful, lofty, you bleeding heart liberals who believe that that's a nice goal to have, that would be a nice thing, never to torture. But we are in a war. I'm going to lower my voice like Dick Cheney here. Try. There's nobody better at speaking with authority than Dick Cheney, unless he just shot his hunting buddy. But we are in a war, and now we have to go against even the laws. Ethics, laws, Geneva Convention, solid principles can't matter, because the truth is, if we want, now we're using fear and hate, big-time propagandistic things. If we are going to win the war, we have to do these things to be pragmatic and effective. I teach a whole other thing on pragmatic effective investigation. It turns out the one thing you can do is tell people that torture, for instance, doesn't work. It actually increases terrorism.
Right.
It doesn't work to get good information or intelligence. It's just the opposite. This is, you know, we want to talk about lies. This isn't puffing, shading, or skewing. This is one of the biggest lies that has occurred since 9/11, which is saying that our Constitution is a nice ideal and an ethical thing, but we have to do pragmatic, effective, hard, you know, bomb the village to save it type things. And it's I think everybody should write a letter, leave here today, and write a letter to the editor about it. And I'm sorry to blab so much. This is in my heart and soul. There are 5 major propagandistic tools that you will hear on all talk radio and whatever. They are always pressing your buttons, of course. Propagandists love to do that. And I think that you can say that they come down to 5 major categories. The first one, fear. And they're in this order, by the way. Fear, they can get you to duct tape yourself up. I mean, if Tom Ridge shows the picture of a building being hit by a plane and then suggests, or anthrax, at the time it was anthrax, and suggests that duct tape is the answer, you know how many people ran out and bought duct tape? Reasonable people? It's fear is so incredibly powerful. Fear, hate, greed, false pride, which is kind of this elitism, nationalism, and blind loyalty. Those 5 things will turn every good, otherwise good person practically into a monster. What's the answer? The answer is to go with the opposite, which is courage, love, generosity, false pride. The opposite is humility, and the last is critical thinking. Is the opposite of blind loyalty.
I'd like to listen to her all day.